are here this morning with Vanessa, and we're in a beautiful park, Lowville Park in Burlington, Ontario. Good morning, Vanessa.
Hello.
So I like to start off our interview by asking the artists to talk about their creative journey and how they got to where they are today. What inspired them to become a creative?
Well, my grandmother, although I wouldn't know, I don't know if she was an artist. I would call her. She was extremely creative. She always had a project on the go. She was a wonderful knitter, or she would make baskets, or she had a lovely sense of fashion. She was very creative. So I always really admired her. And actually, she had 10 children. And I'd say all of her daughters are very creative people. So my mother is, I would call my mother an artist that doesn't practice regularly, but my mother and I have done some classes together, which has been fun. So she's actually quite a good artist. She needs to do it a little more often, as we all do, I think, to get better at it. But yeah, she was actually one of my students once, which was a lot of fun to have my mom in my class. I don't teach very often. I think there's the influences of those women, especially my mother's side. Yeah, and I've just, I don't know, I've always drawn or done something creative, and then I've gotten recognition for it as a little child, you know, when an adult actually likes something you've done and isn't just pretending, and then, so then you just kind of go, oh, so you do it a little more often, I guess. Yeah, I think it's just something that's in you. That's not that everyone can obviously improve and learn, and if they have the desire to do it. But yeah.
Would you say that art has been something that you were compelled to do from an early age?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I just think it's something usually that's in you, like anything else. If a person, you know, is a writer, or they just have the mind of an engineer, or whatever it is. But I always find it fascinating that usually, even a teacher, like a lot of times it runs in families.
And so this past 18 months has been a challenge, I guess, for all of us, really. Has your practice changed, or were there certain things that you were able to do that you normally wouldn't be able to do during the pandemic lockdowns?
Oh, well, in the beginning, it really wasn't. It wasn't a. I mean, it was concerning, obviously, but lifestyle wise, I guess, as an artist, we're often used to working at home. Mind you, we couldn't meet up with our groups, so that was, you know, discouraging. But in the beginning, I think some people who, obviously not those who have to work from outside the home, but if you were working from in the home anyway, it seemed to me that you ended up with a little more time, especially if you had children, that you didn't have to drive back and forth to school or to certain, you know, activities. For me, I was a little spoiled in the beginning. I did actually get quite a lot of painting in, and a bit of a routine happening that, you know, I didn't mind. Of course, I was concerned for everyone's well-being. But then I got to a point where I think, like everyone, was like, okay, this is enough already. Yeah. Even for an artist who's used to solitary activities and, you know, for a lot of time. No, it's like, okay, this is too much now. We need to, yeah, this needs to end, I guess.
I think for me, the biggest challenge was finding supplies.
Oh, yes. And that was an interesting thing, wasn't it? We had to, it didn't matter if you weren't a big fan of online shopping. That certainly had to change. You had to learn new ways of adapting.
So how long have you been working as a creative? I know you said you started early.
Really, I went to the University of Ottawa and I studied fine art, but I was intimidated and took a lot of art history classes. I took some studio classes, but I don't know. Just because I wanted to learn something that I loved to learn about. So I definitely had a really good experience at university. And then after university, I went on a trip and I met someone who's now my husband. And I ended up moving to Australia because he was living in Australia. And in Australia, so that was, oh my goodness, I want to say 30 years ago, I joined an art group there, did some classes there and painted. So when I was in Australia, I did a couple art shows and, I was there for almost 5 years. And then I came back here. Actually, I was working at the Art Gallery of Burlington and volunteering. So I always remember doing something. The thing that took me away from painting really was when I had my children, especially my first. I only have 2 children, but that took me away from painting for a while. And so I would go long stretches without painting when I had my family. And then when my daughter was 2, so that was 12 years ago, I went back and I discovered a group that's still in existence, the Canadian Glazed Oil Painters. And that technique I just fell in love with. So that was back in 2009. So I've been painting ever since, more regularly since that group.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you find sort of something that you love, not that I don't like to dabble in other types of medium and what have you, but glazed oil painting is always just something that I gravitate back to because I really enjoy the whole process and every stage of it. And so I've been very involved with the Burlington Fine Arts Association for many years. So that really keeps you going. When you have deadlines, I highly recommend that anyone who's in the area, join a group, because you have shows and you have a deadline, then you push yourself to paint. Otherwise you might, you tend to get lazy maybe. But if you have to work towards a deadline, for sure, that's always a good idea to keep you going. Yeah.
So throughout your career so far, I'm sure there's some things that you could share with emerging artists that you feel are important for them to know.
Right. Well, I think, I've heard it said, and it's very true, and I should do it more myself, is just paint more or do whatever it is you do more. The more you do it, the better you'll become. Like, even if it's always good to take classes and workshops, expand, but even if you're just in your studio, you should have a practice so that you can learn. Otherwise, if you have too much influence, I feel like you're not really figuring out what it is that you want to do. So if you just let yourself keep on painting or whatever, you'll improve, you'll grow. Yeah, I think it's definitely a good idea. And during the pandemic, I felt in the beginning, like I said, like I was actually getting into a very good routine, that I was going off in different directions that I hadn't really thought about. But I think that's kind of the point for me. I don't want to think about it too much. I just want to, when thoughts and ideas come into my head, if I can put some of those out, there's usually probably too many, but if I can put them out there, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you have the opportunity, for sure, just do it.
Do you feel that a formal education is important for emerging artists?
Well, not formal per se. I would recommend instruction for all artists. Like, I mean, I took a couple online workshops, which was actually another sort of blessing in all of this mess. I took some online workshops with artists that are down in the US, and through our guild again at the Art Gallery Burlington, and so that was wonderful. So yeah, I think some instruction for sure is good, but then just do your own thing and see how it goes. And then when you'll feel it, you'll feel like, okay, now maybe I need to learn whatever. Like you might all of a sudden have an interest in something else. Like, you know, you might say, oh, gee, I'd love to do some plein air, but I don't really know how to go about it. So yeah, for sure, take a workshop. But as far as like,
I've read a lot of artists will say that it's important to learn the rules, right, and then you get to a point where you throw them out and you just move on from there.
Yes, actually, that's some rules don't always apply. I had a critique once in the painting that literally the subject matter was in the middle of the painting, and the artist teacher said, well, this is against the rules, but it doesn't matter because it works. And that was actually one of my more successful paintings. I sold that painting at an auction, and I was thrilled to see, as any artist is, when somebody appreciates something that you've made. Or yeah, so I always remember that, because you know what, it was, the whole thing was probably against the rules. Now that I look at it, think about it, you know, I don't have the painting anymore, but even dividing up the picture plane, sometimes I'll divide it up in such a way that's probably, it's not considered correct, but you know, somehow you can make those things work, right? But yeah, you should be aware of the rules, and then see where you go. If you find yourself painting something that's, you'll know when it works anyway.
So one of the topics of discussion that we've been touching on this season has been trends in the art world, and if that's something that we should be concerned about, is it something that we should be following, that whole sort of conversation. What are your thoughts about that?
I really don't know what is trending. That's the truth. I just do my own thing, and sometimes you connect with an audience a little bit, and that's great. That's all you can hope for. I mean, I couldn't see myself following a trend and trying to make something that fits into it, because it wouldn't be authentic, and so therefore it probably wouldn't be very good. Yeah. So I personally, I can't make myself do something just for that reason.
So one of the questions I like to ask all my artists, and it's a good one because it makes them think, is where would you like to see yourself in 10 years from now?
Oh boy, you know what? I don't really plan that far ahead. I'm thinking, what am I doing next week? I have learned not to plan too far ahead because I really don't know what's going to happen. That's for sure. But ideally, I think, as most artists would probably say, that I'd like to be still painting. I would like to be painting sort of just in a routine where I have a lot of studio time that I can develop, and yeah, that, and not have too much else to worry about.
Yeah.
I have figures appearing in my landscape at the moment, which is ironic because that's exactly what's happened with my studio work. I tell people these people just appeared in my studio work. So I never painted people before. And then 2 years ago, I just started noticing people just before the pandemic in groups. And I just started painting a lot of people. I do put my paintings out into shows, and they don't, of course, always sell. So I guess a bigger studio space, you know, more showings, just more time, because all of that takes a lot of time. Like, you almost need your own separate person, which some artists do have if you're very good at what you're doing, right? Yeah. You have to be. Most don't, that I know. Most of the artists I know don't have that, but I have. See, I do know a couple of people that actually look after all those things for you. So for sure, if somebody's going to look after your social media and enter you into competitions or shows or galleries and all of that, that would be fantastic. So I think as artists, it's you never have quite enough time. At least I don't, because yeah, you want to paint, but then there's all of these opportunities available. There's a lot of opportunities, like even through just the Art Gallery of Burlington, the Art Guild, the number of shows that we put on. There's it's hard to keep up with it. So yeah. Anyway, and a lot of organizations, art organizations, are volunteers. So I've put a lot of time into volunteering, which is great, but time consuming, but a great way to make lots of connections.
So Vanessa, what would you say up to this point has been your proudest or most memorable moment for your career?
Oh, wow. I was actually very honored when I received an award for volunteering in Burlington. So from the Burlington Fine Arts Association, it's called the Jerry Pewley Founders Award. So she founded the Fine Arts Guild over 50 years ago. And a few years ago, they started giving an award to a person who volunteered for the Guild and into the community. So I was honored to receive that, for sure. Yeah, that was a really great thing because I, like you, enjoy bringing art out to the community. So we have some venues outside of the gallery, and then it's great for people to stumble upon art, to learn about original art, especially in Canada. I feel like we could definitely just have more people who value original art. So I really enjoyed getting that award. Otherwise, anytime, not that I've had them that many times, but anytime you get a Juror's Choice Award, a People's Choice Award for a show, it's just very nice. It's nice when anyone likes your work. Yeah. As an artist, that's the greatest compliment, when somebody just says, "Oh, wow, that's you know, really something that I relate to, and they tell you why, and you're just like, oh, great. Yeah. That's just great, right? Yeah. That's very rewarding for sure.
Well, Vanessa, I want to thank you so much for joining me here this morning in this beautiful setting.
Great. Thank you. It was a joy to be here, and it's not too hot, believe it or not, in the shade yet.
Yeah, it's not bad. And there's a little whisper of a breeze.
Yes, yes. It's really nice. This is why plein air painters come out really early in the morning. It's just lovely. Yes, it's very nice to get out. And I appreciate that you're promoting local art and artists. And yeah, like I said, I challenge everyone to have at least one piece of original art in their home, even if it's just a little tiny something. For sure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.